Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Dan here. You're on a mission that I think very few people have been on before you to really solve a major problem and make this global system that for food, make it streamlined, efficient, and really modernize it. A lot of it's been done on spreadsheets with restaurants and distributors having to deal with much more tedious processes, and you've been working to build software out that really streamlines the overall process, saves money, makes it more efficient, and just better for the environment too. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Awesome. So where did your passion initially for entrepreneurship begin? When did you decide, hey, this is the path I'm going to go in with my life?
I think it's a very philosophical question. I think it's two things for me. One certainly is parents. I think both my parents are entrepreneurs, very different than a tech entrepreneurs, more like small businesses. Even my grandparents also entrepreneurs, actually in food as well, having had a small, butcher, and a cafe. And I think that's one. Like I always love to say, for me there was no plan B. Like this, I could only start my own company. Everything that I have done prior to starting Choco was really learning how to do that, learning how to start and scale a company. And I think the second reason is that I think entrepreneurship, or starting and building your own company is a very powerful tool to make big changes, positive changes to the world and to your own life that I very firmly believe, probably also because of family reasons. My dad is a war refugee who came, from Lebanon to Germany, and I think had no other way but starting his own business, because he have never find regular job, and I think that provided for us when I was small. And so I think it's just a great tool that can change people's lives.
Totally agree. So you wanted to have an impact. Why did you land on this specific problem of solving this global connected food system?
Hey, I think that what is really important when you start your own company is not necessarily like the one idea you go after, but it's rather, this commitment to this one idea means not doing all the millions of other potential ideas that are out there. And so you got to be really sure about it. And for us, there were two things that were really important to us. And I think one is that, we wanted to solve like a large problem, like a complex one, something that we could really commit to and dedicate our lives to and just spend, 20 plus years on trying to solve it. And so it shouldn't get boring, right? So you want something that even in year 10, 15, it's like, wow, it's exciting. It's still like a big challenge. Second, we also want to solve an important problem, important to society, to economy, to the environment. But it should be important. And I think there's many large unimportant problems as well that make good businesses, but we want to solve an important one. And when you kind of look for large and important problems, then usually like the United Nations website is a pretty good source for those. And in the end of the day, there's only so many. And I think on the highest level, there's probably three. I think it's equality or the lack of it, education, and climate change. And then, we spent over a year 100% researching, 14 months, no job, 100% researching basically on those three. And they're very, very heavily interconnected. And so when you, for example, double click on climate change and you ask yourself, okay, where's it coming from? It comes from carbon dioxide gases. Okay, where are they coming from? And you see, 1/4 comes from electricity production. Another quarter comes from the food system. And then it's like, 2% come from cars, but it seems to, and planes, but then everyone seems to be talking about, cars and planes, when the electric cars solve the problem, but actually it's tiny leverage. It's really tiny leverage. But with 25% in food, that seems like it's high leverage. And, by the way, food is not an optional industries. What I mean? What I mean is that, fashion is an optional industry. You could probably stop producing fashion today and we'd all be probably closed for the next 50 years. There's already enough today on the planet, but the food, we need every day new food, right? Humans run on food. And so we said, okay. And so we looked at it again, and then you realize, hey, we produce about double as much food as we actually eat, which means, we deforestate double of the land that we should deforestate. Mm-hmm. We fertilize double of the land that we should. We harvest double, we refrigerate double, we package double, we sell double, we transport double, and so that seems like a pretty inefficient business, right? And so like this waste or this overproduction really is just a symptom of a fairly inefficient industry. And we thought, hey, that certainly is an important problem, because if we could reduce produce half the food, probably have half the carbon dioxide, and still everyone would have enough to eat. So it's large and important. And we also thought it's quite complex. So, you know, if we just like dissect, like you in Miami, you know, Ben, and so, you know, you might have for lunch some kind of like, you know, salad bowl, which might have some quinoa from it, which comes, you know, from Paraguay. It might have mango from Brazil. It might have soy sauce from Japan, maybe some cheese from France, you know, God knows, and you know, maybe some kale from California. And so it's a very complex supply chain behind a very simple meal. And so, you know, in short, what is the food system? Just to describe its complexity, it's connecting 500 million farmers. Farming is the largest employer on the planet, to 8 billion consumers from every country to every country, 24/7 and non-stop since eternity, because we've been eating forever, without any master plan, without any regulation, without any blueprint. So that obviously leads to a lot of inefficiency, a lot of chaos. And we thought, hey, that's a cool challenge.
Mm-hmm. So how did you go about determining, like, how do we make a system to solve this? Like, you know, you mentioned the problem, but how did you figure out the first part of the problem you wanted to solve, make the MVP, and then, you know, what's been the thought process to actually build out this software and have a robust set of solutions?
Yeah. So look, the solution, in the end of the day, is pretty complex, because, you know, let's take one example. Let's go mango. Okay, I would argue most humans like mango. It's just a nice fruit, but it's a very large fruit. And so you can harvest it once a year, and the mango trees can become like humongous, and then they're hanging there. And so you can harvest them once a year. And so, but if we're both farmers, say in the south of Brazil, then there's going to be a harvest manager, which is going to tell you harvest on Monday and I harvest on Tuesday, and the next farmer on Wednesday. So we don't all, you know, harvest the same day. So there's even more oversupply. And so I might, you know, harvest 100. The harvest manager is going to buy 90 from me. And I'm going to say, not so bad, you know, 5 I break to my family, we eat it, 5 go to trash. It's not too much. The harvest manager is going to buy 90, he's going to sell 80 to the exporter, you know, who's going to say, not so bad, you know, 5 bring to the family, 5 go to trash. The exporter is going to sell 70 to the importer somewhere in the US, is going to sell, you know, 6 to the wholesaler, is going to sell 50 to that salad place where you're going to have lunch today. And so at every single step, there's not a lot, but in aggregate, there's a massive amount of waste. So as such, a solution has to touch the whole supply chain and can't just be focused on just one part of this chain, like the producer, some kind of middleman, or like the restaurant or the supermarket or whatever. And so the question, and so for the solution, we need to bring all of them online. So the question was really where to start. And when you think of it, 2 things are true for food. One, it's a highly commoditized product. So if you want to go out today and buy a broccoli or a mango, and, you know, supermarket A doesn't have it, you go to supermarket B, and I bet if the mango from Brazil is sold out, you're just going to buy the one from Thailand or Colombia, and you won't even care. Whereas, you know, people camping 2 days in front of an Apple store will never go to the other side of the street to buy a Samsung phone, right? So that's the opposite of a commoditized market. But food is commoditized. And second, we produce double as much, which means we have with oversupply. And in a market in which all products are commoditized, in which is oversupply, the buyer really has the power. They can choose in any single moment. And so we said, hey, we got to start with the ultimate buyer, with the end of the chain, which is the restaurant, which is the supermarket, you know, which is the catering company. And so we started kind of building a product for them that will bring them value in their inventory management and day-to-day operations, but also in ordering. And once we, you know, had a couple of thousand of them on board, then we would naturally get the attention of one step deeper in the chain, which are these distributors. because they say, hey, wow, all of this demand is already on the platform. Like, I want to join this platform because all of the demand is there, because it's a buyer's market. And so after 2 years, we then started developing for distributors. And now we're focusing fully on distributors, providing value to them to then further on go a step deeper and a step deeper until hopefully we cover the whole chain, and that we can provide every single of those business the capabilities to operate waste-free and more efficient. So also be more profitable with that, but also connect them more efficiently. What I mean by that is, let's take San Francisco or maybe Paris as an example. Everyone knows Paris, loves Paris. So every second restaurant in Paris is using Choco.
Mm-hmm.
So we know exactly, how many mangoes are needed next week in Paris, and we can, with a very high degree of certainty, predict how many mangoes are going to be needed in the end of May next year
Huh.
in Paris. And why ship too many than what is actually needed, And so this is kind of how it works.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised by how much of like the $6 trillion industry was done by pen and paper before you got involved?
Yeah, so I'm still surprised every day, frankly. I mean, it was very offline, and Choco very much is an offline to online game,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still shocked, 6 years in, sometimes by how offline it is. I can tell you, all of the US, UK, Europe, all of the food that we eat that comes from all over the planet has at some point been traded via fax, via voicemails, and I don't mean like iMessage or WhatsApp voicemails. I mean physical voicemails somewhere on a tape.
Huh.
And by also how offline these companies sometimes operate. Now, of course, they're open to technology, and they want to kind of become modern companies. But most of the largest produce distributors across the globe, if you ask them today, hey, how many onions, how many bananas, how many tomatoes are right now in your warehouse, they don't know the answer.
Hmm.
So if one customer orders, so let's say, you got 10 tomatoes on stock, and if one customer orders 8, and you say, okay, and the next customer orders also 8, it's 16, you don't have 16, you only have 10. You're going to say yes to both, and only then later on, when someone goes to the warehouse, like, oh, well, we only have 10. What are we going to do now? So it couldn't be further away from like a 21st century e-commerce experience, right? And so in many ways, that is kind of the efficiency that we want to bring to them, and that is also product value that we can provide.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, like how much of an impact have you really had like through this platform on, on grouping together the deliveries for certain orders in different areas and really streamlining the process overall? Like how much of an impact has it had for the businesses on their costs, as well as like for, the kind of efficiency and, less impact on the climate that you've wanted?
I think there are several businesses that have gained sometimes 3 to 4% on margin after they started using Choco. For most of our customers, Choco, or actually for all of our customers, Choco pays for itself, because they have less cost, they make more revenue by using Choco. I think it's really important to always put that user value first. I think in terms of impact, I mean, we trade on our platform more food on a day that the whole state of Florida needs in a month.
Wow.
So it has gotten to large volumes. Yeah, and I think yet we're probably at 0.1%, and 99.9% is still fax and the good old tape voicemails.
So, with AI now being like so disruptive and there's a lot of new companies being built in the space, where do you see AI being most applicable to the food space and to this, global supply chain? And, what are you most excited to build with AI?
Yeah. So I think AI is the perfect technology for an old school industry. Why am I saying this? Is because a large part of overcoming ancient ways of doing things, like, hey, you need to learn a new technology, you need to learn how a new software works, and so on and so forth. And that can be really a learning curve that many people are scared of and that they don't want to go on, really. But with AI, suddenly you can communicate with a machine like you communicate with a human. And so that adoption curve is way faster. And so I think AI is actually the perfect use case for an old school industry like ours. So, let's go back to the food supply chain. I assume somewhere between, like, this farmer in Brazil and maybe, the Miami, restaurant, you're some business in the middle. And let's assume you are the one, who's running a perfectly digital, business. Some of these do exist. The problem is, like, you're selling to an old school company, you're buying from an old school company. You're not going to get them on your platform, so they only buy from your online shop or, procure from your procurement system or stuff like that. But today, you're just going to say, hey, guys, keep sending your fax, your voicemails, your text messages, whatever you want. My AI is gonna read it. It's gonna take your unstructured voicemail, structure it, directly put it into my system. So you can actually be a digital company that you want, irrespective of maybe the companies around you. In fact, that is one of the key, not one of the keys, the key product that we provide to our distributors is saying, hey, your customers may still order from you with fax and voicemail and email and text messages and WhatsApp and iMessage and whatnot. And your customers, and your suppliers might send you also, invoices in all kind of unstructured formats, and you can just use Choco AI, and it's going to read it on both sides of your business, structure data, and put it into your ERP system, for example, and that makes you as one player in the whole chain suddenly very efficient and very digital. And so I think AI is an amazing use case for offline industries like ours.
Yeah, definitely agree. So, realistically, like you have a big goal, Dan, you're trying to accomplish here, to really change the way this system is done. Do you think it's possible to even get to the point where there is, we've eliminated food waste, it's entirely gone? Or, like, how great of an impact do you think you guys can have? Like, how low can you get that number? I think it's like 40% right now, of where the food waste is at. Like, how low do you think it can go, or can it get to zero?
Yeah, so I think first of all, around 30% of the waste is happening on the consumer side. So it's actually you and me responsible, buying some supermarket, not eating it. And I think the other 70% is in the supply chain, and that's what we really want to take care of. And hope maybe later we can think of consumer, but I think that's long time out. And so that's it. This is really the majority that I think can be taken care of. But sustainability, quote unquote, and in food goes way further. I think waste is a nice way of speaking about because it's so tangible and partly also emotional. But there's many other things when you think of biodiversity. I was mentioning, like, what you're gonna have for lunch today. I might have had the same. I'm in Berlin, Germany right now. A person in London, a person in Shanghai might have had the same. It doesn't make any sense that we eat the same food all around the globe all the time, right? And if you go to a supermarket, no matter where, across the Western world, let's say, you're going to find the same broccoli and cauliflower and cucumber and chicken breast, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, nature is more diverse than that. So I think, sourcing more local is an important part of it. I think growing in a way that doesn't degrade soil so fast is another component to it. Preserving biodiversity is another component to it. And I think, if we build a truly digital system, then we can incentivize those things. But also showcasing this to the consumer by prioritizing these kind of products on the market. And so, I think we have a 100-year journey ahead, and we're at the very beginning. Hopefully, we can drive it to zero and have a large impact in just waste.
Yeah. So, now I think you've scaled up to, like, 500,000 orders per month, 10,000 plus distributors. How different is it, Dan, operating the business from when it was, much smaller to having this now? And how much further do you think you can go?
I think every month it's more or less a different business once you're growing, right? Because in the beginning, you're like 5 people in a room. You're just trying to make it. You're just, trying to forge product market fit. You're involved in every single decision, and you're very hands-on. And then I think as the company grows, then more and more it's about, coaching the people around you, sometimes being coached from the people around you, trusting them, and kind of creating repeatable systems to create consistent quality work, whether that's on sales, whether that is on product, and it's more working on the system than actually working on, this particular customer, this particular feature, yourself. And I think the most fundamental thing really is to work on a culture that supports your mission, on hiring of people who want to contribute to that, to that mission. And so I think the job is very different now than 1 month ago, than for sure 2 or 3 years ago. To how far can we scale it? Look, I think first of all, food is like humans run on food. There's 8 billion humans, all of them, every single one runs on food. So I think it's a massive market. We right now, US and Europe, food is a global thing. We're at the very beginning of the supply chain, but the supply chain is very long and very complex. And so I think, we want to basically continue working day and night trying to solve that problem, and to surround us with people who want to do the same. We do appreciate, it's a privilege to work on such a problem, and so we must be an economically viable business too. And we believe, providing a lot of value to our customer always makes you economically viable, right? Because you provide value, you can charge for it. And I think we're lucky that we can do this hand in hand.
So just the last question I have, what do you aspire to accomplish now? Like, where do you see the business, and even, personally, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we have to be way deeper into the supply chain, maybe even reach the beginning of it. We will have to have an international footprint, not just Europe and the US. I think AI is going to change a lot internally and externally. By externally, I mean the value that we can provide to our customers, that will become more value, faster time to value. But also internally, I do believe that great companies in the future will grow less on headcount, and kind of will grow more on automation via AI. And I think we strive to be such a company. I think we want to be rather, a company with like very few strong players than like a massive company of average players, and do the remainder with AI. I think we have a very important mission, and we take it serious, and that's a single only reason why we exist.
Well, sounds good, Dan. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, and definitely excited to see how you solve this problem. I mean, I think it's a huge issue. You've already had great impact, and you've provided, like you said, a lot of economic value to these businesses. So, I think it's just going to continue to grow, and wishing you much success.
Thank you very much for your time, Ben.